right, so technology budget.
Exciting stuff.
So this is a very simple presentation. Our budget goals are really to just continue our technology plan implementation, continue the work we've been doing with current initiatives, and then this year we're piloting a few different models of Chromebooks, and hopefully by the end of this year we're going to have a good sense of which way we want to go, and next year we will start to implement some of those different models. Whether it's one-to-one in certain classrooms or having kids bring their own devices or different mobile learning tablets. So this year is really a year sort of exploration. I don't know if you remember, but when I was here a year ago, we had some money built into the budget for those pilots, for that exploration, for trying some different hardware.
Can you explain what one-to-one BYOD
Yes.
mobile learning
Yes.
are?
So one-to-one is where every student has a device.
A school-issued device?
School-issued device. So
That they can take home, or that they just use in the
sometimes they can take it home, sometimes they can't. That varies depending on the school. So basically, one scenario, we're getting there in the next few weeks or a month or so. Two of the coaches at Furnace Woods are going to be piloting one-to-one in their classrooms. So they're going to have a cart of 25 just dedicated for their room, and they're going to try that for a couple of months and see what the issues are. This is like, we always like to kind of try things small scale before we buy 1,000 of something and say it's the whole K-5 thing. So that's not really a new idea. A lot of districts have done that, but there's always issues that come up, so it's good to kind of pilot it and test it and see what comes up. BYOD stands for Bring Your Own Device. We have that already in place at the high school. Students bring their own devices already. There have been some discussions about middle school students doing that, and as you can imagine, people fall on both sides of that conversation.
Enrique's eyes just fell out of his head.
There's some technical, logistical challenges with that, with putting another 200 devices on the Wi-Fi and theft and breakage and all that. But I know Colleen Ruiz, who was here, who's our middle school computer teacher, she's piloting that now in her room, where kids are bringing their own devices and using them for instructional activities.
But that own device can be a smartphone.
It can be anything.
Right.
This is the beauty of the Google Drive environment. It can be a smartphone, it can be an iPad, it can be a Chromebook, it can be a Windows laptop, it can be an Apple laptop. Any device can run this environment. So Google Classroom, Google Drive will run on anything.
Do we know what percentage of our kids don't have access to anything when they go home? You know, a lot of the teachers are doing more things on Google Classroom.
We did that
with more
survey quite a
We
few
did it
years
a couple
ago.
years ago, right?
So I don't know if it's changed. We haven't done it. I think that was 3 or 4 years ago.
But back then, a good number. It was.
It was a decent number.
I think it was
almost
half.
Really?
No.
No.
There
That
were a lot
was-
that had, but there were still quite a few kids that didn't have access.
There was
readily
obviously
to
there was a
modern-
disparity across the districts. There was more at the younger, the younger the kids, the less access.
Right.
The older kids had more access. So our process, same every year. The way we develop the budget is we ask the administrators what their input is. We discuss it at cabinet. We share with Enrique, and then Monday this week we shared this presentation with the finance committee. We made a few changes based on their input, and then we're here presenting it to you. So just a little historical context for those of you that either weren't here or don't remember. This is our 5-year replacement cycle. Every year we replace the hardware in one building, so computers in the district are never more than 5 years old, which is about the lifespan of computers now. Computers are the cost of the hardware has come way down, and that's because of competition, but it's also because they're making them really cheaply. So they don't really last more than 5 years.
So the K-12 software, though, that was a free upgrade to Windows 10 and Microsoft Office, wasn't it?
Correct. The Windows was free, but the Office wasn't. Yeah, Office we bought. So that's the sequence of the buildings that we go in. So Furnace Woods is due this summer. We'll be replacing their hardware, and there's still a conversation right now if that is going to be desktops or Chromebooks or a combination.
What's the
So one possibility might be just leave the smartboard computer in the classroom and give them 10 Chromebooks. One possibility.
Leave the old one.
Yeah, or put in one new one. Just replace
It's
one
hardwired.
PC in every classroom instead of 6.
Right.
Another possibility might be to continue what we've been doing, which is replace them all one for one, or some hybrid of Chromebooks and PCs. I mean, there's advantages to both, and it's a lot of times teachers have strong preferences, but I think what you heard from the coaches is that the Chromebooks just bring a real level of access that you don't get with a PC in the classroom. You can have kids walking around, you can have kids sitting in the corner, they're quick, they're reliable, they're simple, so they bring a lot of advantages.
But they're a 3-year cycle, aren't they?
Well, we haven't gotten that far yet. Their license is a 3-year cycle, but we don't know how long they're going to last. When we started with the first Chromebooks, we bought a Samsung model because Dell didn't have them yet, and those are, I think, 2.5 years old, and they're holding up okay. But the new ones we're buying now are Dell Chromebooks, which are much sturdier,
And they're also touch.
and those are the touchscreens. Yeah,
One's going
and they're
forward.
just
Kids, all the kids now, I mean, the little guys, they're so
Yeah.
used to touchscreen.
right.
So,
Guess what?
So Dell, really has a lot of history building devices for the K-12 market. So they put that expertise into these Chromebooks. They're just much sturdier. They have a sturdier case, a sturdier hinge.
So, but we're still not sure yet on the actual lifespan of the devices.
No.
So you can renew the license for another 3 years.
Yeah, you can keep
Another
it
2
going.
years.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I hear from other districts is they start to, they keep spares because, frankly, it's not worth spending 5 hours to fix it. So that they keep spares and they keep some for parts, and they try to do as much in-house. Like if they have to swap the display, they will, but they're not going to open it up and start tinkering with it. It's just not worth the time.
Okay.
So this is the overview of the budget. Basically 5 categories of budget codes in the technology budget. You see the 16-17 column and the 17-18 proposed column. This is the general overview. You'll see that 3 of the items are rollover, no increase, and 2 of the items have increases, which I'll get to in a little bit. Overall, the budget increase is 1.1%. So let me take you through each of those lines. So the hardware code, no increase there. We do the planned replacements through the lease. And then this is sort of a kind of an emergency code that we use not only for emergencies but for things that aren't classroom computers. So things like servers or switches, things that we are not always on the same cycle. Sometimes those have to be replaced mid-year. Sometimes those have to be replaced in May or June because they're all on different cycle than the classroom computers, which are on a nice, consistent summer replacement cycle.
Are we going to finish the air conditioning for the servers?
It's done.
It's done?
Yeah, hold on.
All of the bond work is done?
Hold on. Yep.
Okay, good.
That's been great because we can keep those rooms closed and locked now, and they're much more secure.
So that helps us with our security audit also.
Yes, that was something we got that came up on our audit every year since I've been here. The security of those closets. Contractual. This line item. This is the biggest line item. It includes tech support staff, vendors that support our printer fleet, student data systems like Infinite Campus, any software that we pay for support for. There's a slight increase of $8,640 in that line, and that's for contractual increases from outside vendors.
How many printers do we
Too many, in my mind. I wish there was one that would do it all. I'd say around a dozen.
A dozen?
Yeah.
That's all the printers we have?
Oh, how many printers? I thought you said how many vendors.
No, you
So
said
you
you have
said how
printer.
many vendors.
Oh.
You said printer fleet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have a lot. Probably close to 200. They're all remotely monitored by this contractor. They replace toner and do maintenance proactively. They monitor everything from their shop, and they come in and try and fix problems before they come up. Software, so no increase in the software line. This line is used for instructional and administrative software. So some things like library databases, instructional programs like Reading A to Z, things like that. Assessment software like iReady, and website software like our school websites, things that we use for communication, things like that. So those are renewed on an annual basis. We're at the point right now where, unless it's something really urgent, what I tell people is if we're going to add something, we got to take away something, because otherwise it just keeps growing and growing, and it gets to be too much, and people end up not using it anyway. Supply code, that's pretty self-explanatory. No increase in that code. That's used for all the little kind of bits and pieces that keep the network running: hardware, parts, cables, office supplies, adapters. Lease code, this is the largest increase, and this is to incorporate new hardware into the cycle this summer, which I spoke to you about, which was at Furnace Woods. And it includes not only Chromebooks, laptops, computers, any sort of computing devices. So we need to get a new lease into the cycle this year that will incorporate that. That's the overview. Any questions?
Since you mentioned it, iReady. When Joe and I were at this thing the other day, people were bringing up iReady as an issue, and I saw it also on a Facebook post. People were talking about how iReady is not a proven technology. Joe was explaining to me it's used for assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Is it accurate? And how?
You have a child taking the assessment online, so there's always some guesstimate in terms of how are you relating to the piece that's in front of you and how are you responding. How seriously does the student take the assessment, which you could argue would be the same with pencil and paper.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we compare the results that we get with iReady with some of the more one-to-one assessments that teachers are doing, I haven't heard anybody so far suggest that they're not seeing an alignment. And we ask we talk about it regularly with the principals. So, there's always that piece of, can I get the child sitting there to take it seriously and attend to what's being asked of them, because the program will move you on if they see you successful, or drop it back if they see you struggle in any given strand that's being assessed. But honestly, I haven't heard from any of the principals or the data teams that they're seeing drastically different results here than they are seeing when they're sitting with kids themselves or administering a local assessment through their math program, etc.
It's just a small piece of things anyway.
It's one marker. One of the requirements that the state asks of us, which we believe in, is multiple measures, so that you get a broad picture of how the child is performing in any given curriculum area. So it is one of the tools we use, and it is a required, not that that's required, but we're required to have a universal screener for response to intervention. So.
And what the presenter was talking about at this breakfast was the fear and maybe even trend of computers taking over for live teachers and flipped classrooms and those things, and some research was shared around iReady and other diagnostics that go further. They not only assess children's ability in math or literacy, but then also have prescribed interventions and also become a curriculum and become an intervention as opposed to an assessment, which we don't use iReady for. We use iReady as a dipstick measurement. Where are we? And teachers and teams with reading teachers, special ed teachers, whomever prescribe interventions based on that data.
Are we still having kids that come into kindergarten right at the beginning taking iReady? Or I know we talked about.
So I had a great conversation with
Right.
the kindergarten team at the last early release day, which was January, I think, January 30th. And we talked, I wanted to know from them what their thoughts were going into the next year. So collectively, and I used to teach kindergarten, so I get that part, we decided to push the initial screening for kindergarten in terms of any assessment from September to the end of October, so kids have
Oh,
a chance
great.
to acclimate.
Thank you.
And then I believe what we're going to do is not have them use the online tool until January.
That's even better.
So that's
That
where we
just
stand.
makes so much sense.
The
So,
teachers are also
thank
making
you.
an adjustment to one of the one-to-one assessments
Mhm.
that we used, and there were different opinions about how successful that was, so I asked them to rewrite it collectively as a grade, and we'll look at it at the March early release day.
Now, first grade, it's still staying in December.
Yes, so first grade
Okay.
is staying. So we continue to monitor what, how kids are doing with it, what kind of feedback we're getting. The program itself also tells you when kids are rushing,
Okay.
so that you can go and look into what's happening with that. You'll get a flag that this child went too quickly. Right.
They're
and
just
did
pressing the button.
Right, did the A thing. But honestly, I've seen kids do that on the ELA test too. We had a kid one year who just patterned her bubbles.
Yes.
She just wasn't engaged, and that was her response to the test. So, it's a risk you take, having kids really engage and understand the purpose of the assessment. I think the reading team this year has worked hard with the AAS students to really have them buy into their own progress monitoring, so kids are attending to how well am I doing and how well could I do if I did this. So they're seeing a little bit more improvement this year with kids because they're engaged in monitoring their own progress instead of having the teacher monitor it and just tell them how they're
That's
doing.
good. Thank you.
Yep.
You're welcome.